Hey guys, this is Nick from ForexNoobs.com with some daily analysis. Today is Wednesday, the 23rd of March 2016, and the time is 13:33 here in the UK. You're looking at a EURJPY daily chart. In today's analysis, we're going to be going through each and every pair. Well, not each and every pair, but most of these pairs here. Some of these pairs I don't actually trade. We're going to be going through most of these pairs here. We're going to be looking at every single time frame for those pairs. This is my process that I use several times per day to scan for price action setups. Basically, the process is simple. Click on a pair, go through every single time frame. If you see a setup, then you mark that pair and you look to trade the setup potentially. It's a very simple process, but yeah, it ensures that I very rarely miss a trade. The reason I very rarely miss a trade is because if I'm scanning my charts, let's say every 4 hours, it ensures that I see every single 4-hour candle that forms. If I'm scanning my charts every 8 hours because, I'm busy that day, it ensures that I see every 8-hour candle that forms. If I'm seeing every 8-hour candle that forms, it means that I'm sure to catch any 8-hour trades, 12-hour trades, daily trades, because I trade those 3 time frames. And it also means that I'm potentially going to catch 6-hour trades, 4-hour trades, and 3-hour trades. So yeah, this is my process, and this is what I go through several times per day to scan my charts. And in this video, we're going to go through that. One other thing that I have to mention this every time I do an analysis video, because I know I'm going to get questions on it. Why do I have these weird time frames up here, like the 7-hour, 9-hour? I use those time frames just for analysis purposes. I don't trade those time frames. The time frames that I actually trade are the 3-hour, the 4-hour, the 6-hour, the 8-hour, the 12-hour, and the daily. Those are the time frames I trade. The 5-hour I don't trade. The 7-hour I don't trade. The 9, 10, and 11 I don't trade. I just use those because it's nice to see price split up into different candles. It just gives you a better idea of what price is doing, and it allows you to read price action. It gives you more information on price action, and that allows you to read price action much more clearly. So that's why I have those time frames. I don't actually trade those ones. I only trade 3, 4, 6, 8, 12 daily. Anyway, let's get started with the analysis. We'll start up on the daily EURUSD. We're not going to actually see anything here because price is in between 2 support resistance areas. That being said, there's a pretty recent bounce from here. So adjusting the support resistance area would not be a bad move, really. Falls in line with some previous bounces. It's clear that the support resistance all the way through here, so all the way through this kind of rough area, there's some support resistance. In this case, support, because price is above it. But it was quite clear that there was resistance here when price was coming up. And we also saw resistance here when price was coming up this time. And we saw price stall momentarily for a single candle as it was coming down. So yeah, I think I'm going to pull this area up a little bit. I'm going to pull it up to here. And that would actually line up with this current indecision candle. That's part of the reason I'm pulling it up, because we're seeing signs of price stalling here. We're seeing indecision, and this indecision here matches up with this here, matches up with that there. So, that's enough information, and also matches up with that momentary pause there, which isn't a major thing, but it's just a little bit of extra confirmation. That makes me think there's potentially some support here, and we might see a trade. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. I'm going to keep an eye on EURUSD. We might see a setup here. I mean, a lot of people are apprehensive to adjust their support resistance areas based on current indecision candles. When they see price stalling, they're apprehensive with adjusting their support resistance areas. And, understandably so, because where do you draw the line? Where do you start? Where do you say, I'm going to move the support resistance area up to match that indecision candle. But if you start doing that every time, then you could just start throwing your support resistance areas everywhere to adjust them to any single little spot of indecision or reversal candle, whatever you want to call them, that you see. So it is a bit of a tricky one, but the way I usually do it is, are there clear signs of indecision? Are there clear signs of bounces? Are there clear signs of price stalling in the very recent past? And with this one, there definitely are. I mean, price stalled right here. That was a pretty strong bullish move, and it turned around for quite some time right here. Then on this bullish move, price turned around for not that long, but it turned around for a little bit, and then it continued up. And on its way down, it stalled for a single candle. Again, not too important, but you got to remember, this is a 12-hour chart. So if we go down to like the 4-hour, for example, we can see that when it was coming down, it stalled for, it looks a lot more significant on the smaller time frame. Here we also have a wick bounce when price came down to here, bounce there. So my point is that this candle, this current spot of indecision, I'm adjusting this support area to match this indecision. But I'm not just doing it because I want to take a trade here. I'm doing it because there is actually some very recent evidence of support resistance here. There's a very strong bounce here. There's a kind of strong bounce there. So yeah, hopefully everyone understands that and is on board with that move of the support area. And that opens up the possibility of taking a trade here. So let's look at some of the lower time frames again to see what's happening around here. I'm going to go straight to the ones I trade this time. All right, 6 hour maybe. All right, still need to wait for candle to close, really. Probably only going to be interested in this one on the 12-hour chart. I just moved this support area. And while I'm perfectly okay doing that, like I explained, it still makes me a touch apprehensive about just jumping into a trade on this one. So I want to wait for a trade to form on a higher time frame and not jump in on one of the lower time frames. So, you know, it's got about 7 hours, 19 minutes until it closes. If it closes like this, then yeah, I might consider entering this trade. So we'll see how this one plays out. I'm in no rush to get into this trade, so I'll just see if this closes as indecision. Anyway, let's continue to AUDUSD. What's going on with AUDUSD? Starting up at the daily and working our way down. Look at that. Nice little bit of indecision on top of an area of support. Also on the 4 hour, no surprise there. Yeah, okay. This is another thing to watch. So there's potential here if this closes as indecision. I'd probably want to trade this on the 8 hour as opposed to the 4 hour. I just prefer the higher time frames, really. Trades are a lot safer on the higher time frame. So if I see, if I see indecision forming on an area of support on the 12 hour, I'd rather trade it on the 12 hour than I would on the 4 hour. Why is that? Because the lower time frames, you're more likely to see these like brief spots of indecision where price just stalls for a few hours and then continues in its direction. So on the smaller time frames, you might see like a brief 4 hour spot of indecision and then price is going to continue in its original direction. And, that might get you to enter a reversal trade only for it to keep moving in its original direction and then you lose the trade. So I prefer to trade reversals on the higher time frames when I can, because if I'm trading it on the 8 hour or the 12 hour, it means that buyers, also in this case sellers have stalled there for a whole 12 hours. So they've stalled there for quite some time. It's not like they just came to here, stopped for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then continued on their way down. They've stopped here for 12 hours. That gets more and more significant. The daily even more so, because that's 24 hours where they've stalled there. that starts to tell me that sellers are really, really struggling. But if they stall for just 4 hours, like on a 4-hour chart, that tells me that, they're struggling just for 4 hours, but it doesn't really mean that much. It could easily continue pushing back up. It could easily continue pushing down. So yeah, this looks pretty decent here on the AUDUSD. Looking at the 8-hour, I'm going to monitor this on the 8-hour. So we already got 2 potential trades. That was pretty quick. 12-hour Euro USD, 8-hour AUD USD. So let's look at USDCAD. USDCAD is running into an area of resistance. These 2 areas are close together, which makes it hard to get a good trade. So we're probably not going to actually see a potential trade here on USDCAD. All right, so USDCAD's running into an area of resistance. Let's just quickly see if indecision were to form here, would there even be potential to take a trade? Just some rough numbers. I just want to get a rough idea. Obviously, we don't have an indecision candle to work with. We don't have that candle, so it's hard to just like make one up and visualize one, but I'm going to try. Like, what I'm looking at in my head is a candle that kind of has a high around about here, a low around about here, and a body of whatever size, doesn't really matter that much, something like that. So yeah, I'm placing my stop around about up here, my entry around about down here, and my target. Yeah, this actually, if we get a decent indecision candle here, you can still get a risk to reward ratio of 1 to 2. So yeah, there actually might be some potential on USDCAD if indecision forms. I mean, right now it's just heading into an area of resistance, so that doesn't really give us much. If indecision forms at this area of resistance, depending on the indecision candle itself, depending on the highs and the lows, there might be potential. So keep a close eye on USDCAD would be my advice. AUDJPY, let's check that out. Starting with the daily. Yeah, not much going on. I mean, there's an open trade on it right now that some people took, but there's not much that we can trade here. So I'll just quickly explain the trade that some members took. I personally didn't like this trade. Didn't fit in well with my risk to reward ratio. I tried to go for a minimum of 1 to 2, but this one had a risk to reward ratio of around about 1.75. I mean, if you pulled it down enough, you could say 2, but it has to fall pretty deep into the support area. Sorry, there's heaps of forum notifications going off. It has to fall pretty deep into the support area for a target to be hit if it's 1 to 2. So the safer target would be around about 1.75, which just makes it not a really viable trade for me. A few members entered from the advanced course, but we're not all using the exact same risk management rules. Like, just because my minimum risk to reward ratio is 1 to 2 or a 2 risk to reward ratio, it doesn't mean that everyone's is. Some members of the advanced course are doing 1.5. Some are even doing 1 for their risk to reward ratio. So it really depends who's trading. It's still a reversal. So it's still a viable reversal trade. It's just the risk to reward ratio for me personally is not viable. So this was not a trade for me. And the fact that there is an open trade here means that there's pretty much no chance at anything happening on this setup. So I'm just going to throw this to the bottom of the list for now. GBP/JPY, let's look what's happening here. This analysis is going to go on for very long. All right, nothing much happening on GBP/JPY, so let's go EURJPY. EURJPY is in between 2 support resistance areas, so not much going on there. Yeah, no potential for anything here. I keep missing time frames. Yeah. All right, nothing there. EURJPY. I was actually looking to take a trade here today. There was potential to take a short trade on the 12-hour chart. Let me show you. I actually had a pending order in and everything. I was really looking to take this trade. My pending order was set here. Stop loss was set here, and target, well, the target was set there, but I was probably going to extend it. But obviously the trade didn't trigger. It pushed up before triggering my entry. So this trade has been cancelled. But that's why I don't enter. A lot of people ask me, Nick, do you enter as soon as the indecision candle closes? So that candle there would be the indecision candle for those of you who are not familiar with my strategy. Do you enter as soon as the indecision candle closes? And I always say no. I want to see confirmation. So if we're taking a short trade like we're seeing here, I want to see confirmation that sellers have taken control of price. So what's the best way to see that sellers have taken control of price? When they make a lower low. So when sellers make a lower low beyond the previous candle, that's the first sign that they've taken control of price. If they're able to push a bit lower than that new low, that's an even better sign that they've taken control of price. So that's why I set my entry here. Sellers would have to push from here, from open, all the way down. They would have to make a new low, and then they would have to push 5 or 6 pips beyond that low to break my entry. So yeah, well, not 5 or 6 pips. How many pips is this exactly? Yeah, 4 pips. So yeah, they'd have to push 4 pips below the previous low to break my entry. So you can see that in this case, that saved me from getting entered into this trade, which would have been a failed trade because sellers never took control of price. So I never actually entered. That's why we don't enter as soon as indecision closes. We need to see some confirmation that sellers have taken control of price. Let's look at USDCHF. But it is in between 2 support resistance areas, so all right, so let's take a quick look at GBP USD. What is GBP USD up to? It's heading to a support area. Doesn't look like it's stalling. Looks like it might break straight through, but we'll see how that goes. My advice would be to just keep an eye on GBP USD. If indecision forms here, there might be potential for a trade. Last time price came down to this area, it stalled right here, and then it turned around, and it was a really strong reversal. So I will be looking for that to potentially happen again. If we see indecision here, I might end up taking a trade. Keep an eye on it. There's nothing right now. It looks like the bearish move is pretty strong right now, but keep a close eye on it. All right, USDJPY. Nothing much going on. It's in between 2 support resistance areas, so not really much potential for anything here. New Zealand USD. Let's look at what New Zealand USD is doing. Sitting on an area of support, so it's just another one of these ones where you want to keep an eye on it. Whenever a price is sitting on an area of support, it's a good idea to keep an eye on it, but there's no indecision, so there's no potential for a trade right now. I think GBP AUD is the last one we're going to do. GBP AUD looks like it might form into a reversal here. I mean, price is stalling on this area of support, but I'm not too confident about this area of support here. It's placed based on some pretty kind of weak data, so I'm not too sure about it. It is something that I might trade, but we'll just see how it works out on the daily. So basically, if this candle closes like this on the daily, I might be tempted to take a long trade. Might be tempted to take a long trade. It would have to be on a slight retrace to get a better risk to reward ratio. I mean, you can get a 2 risk to reward ratio here, but honestly, I'd rather enter on a slight retrace, but that's quite easy on daily trades. You often get that retrace and it gives you a better entry. But yeah, there might be potential to take a trade here. Some people on the forum wanted to enter here on the 12-hour chart, but in my opinion, it wasn't the best trade to take. Reason being that this support area is, we're a bit unsure of the support area. And my worry was that it's broken below the support and support has become resistance. So it's going to bounce from here and then continue down. So that's my concern. But if this were to close as indecision on the daily, then that would start to indicate to me that there is in fact support here, that it's not just going to continue moving down because, you know, sellers have stalled there for an entire day, for an entire 24 hours. And then if after that happens, after they've stalled there for an entire 24 hours, buyers start pushing up and they make a new high beyond the high of the previous candle, this indecision candle here, you know, that indicates to me even more that buyers are taking control of price. This is not really an ideal setup. It is a potential setup. I might take it, but, you know, it's a bit risky because we're unsure of this support area. It is something I'm going to watch, but it's not something I'm going to pin any hopes on. We'll just see how it plays out. There's a lot of other potential good trades, like EURJPY actually has some serious potential. That looks quite good. That looks a lot better than a GBP AUD. AUDUSD looks like it could be good too. So not that great, but overall there's a lot of other stuff happening where, you know, I might be willing to enter that. This GBP AUD trade, it doesn't really tempt me much, to be honest. And actually we're seeing on the 8-hour chart right now, we're seeing an example of what I was talking about. Price has broken below, then it's coming back up. And right now with this candle, it doesn't mean much because it's just a single candle, but we're seeing prices falling back down. So this can be a continuation instead of a reversal. And that's what worries me with this one. That's why I didn't want to enter too early. Didn't want to enter on the 12-hour. I'm watching it on the daily, but yeah, probably not really going to do anything with this pair here. Something to keep an eye on though, if you're interested. Maybe your rules are slightly different to mine, and maybe you're willing to take slightly riskier trades, so you might want to enter. It's up to you. We're not going to do any analysis for these pairs down here because I don't really trade these pairs. These are just pairs that I usually just open them up because someone on the forum will say, hey Nick, can you check out this? And you know, I check it out. So GBP New Zealand, USDCHF, GBP CAD and EURJPY, we're not really going to check them out. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this analysis. I know I kind of like rambled on for a bit. 24-minute analysis, that's pretty much not even close to what my analysis normally is. Normally it's a 10-minute thing. So I did ramble on a bit today. First time I've done analysis in a few weeks. But I hope it was useful. I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis, and I'll see you for tomorrow's analysis.